The participants who answered yes to supporting gender-affirming surgery for minors were also presented with 3 statements. The first informed them that hysterectomies, a surgical procedure removing the uterus, could not be undergone by minors except in very rare cases where the removal is necessary to solve a health concern, and questioned the participants if gender-affirming surgery should be treated similarly. Many of the participants stated that they believe hysterectomies should also be available for minors for the sake of self-determination. Others argue that hysterectomies and gender-affirming surgery should be treated differently, since gender dysphoria causes a variety of mental health concerns that could potentially be helped as a result of gender-affirming surgery, whereas optional hysterectomies are typically undergone when an individual decides that they do not wish to have children and want to avoid future menstrual periods. The second statement presented to the yes group mentioned the recent spike in the number of children and adolescents being referred to gender-confirming clinics, and whether they believe this is the result of social media and peer influence, which adolescents and children tend to be more susceptible to. The vast majority of participants responded that they believe social media does not influence a child's gender identity, but may instead help a child come to that conclusion sooner. The third statement presented to the yes group mentioned that about 7.3% of adolescents who socially transitioned retransitioned after 5 years, and whether or not the statistic changed their opinion in any way. Many of the participants mentioned that this small percentage is minor compared to the other 92.7% of adolescents who are satisfied with their transition. Others went on to explain that there will likely always be a small percentage of individuals who will retransition, but that should not limit the majority's access to those resources, and instead there should be multiple steps to the transitioning process prior to surgical intervention, similar to the guidelines we discussed earlier in this podcast. These survey results are proof of the wide variety of nuanced opinions present within the public surrounding this topic, and statistics, laws, and guidelines are not all there is to it. It is fascinating to see what different individuals consider to be ethical. Some believe it is unethical to allow a child to consent to these procedures out of fear that they are not mature enough to understand the permanence of what it is they are doing, and that they may change their minds later on after it is too late. Yet some believe it is unethical to withhold these privileges from adolescents because of the idea of self-determination, and the fact that adolescents unable to access the treatment they deem as sufficient for their transition may continue to suffer from the trauma of being unable to properly express themselves. Some may argue that it comes down to the idea of whether or not age is representative of an adolescent's maturity, and whether or not a specific age should be representative of whether or not a child can consent to one of these major procedures, or whether or not there should be another form of maturity measurement that these individuals may have to undergo before they undergo gender-confirming surgery. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health provides a Standards of Care manual. This Standards of Care manual serves as recommendations, but not strict laws, regarding the healthcare of transgender individuals. These standards of care do not outline a specific age that individuals must be to undergo gender-affirming surgery, but they do suggest that it is ensured the individual is mature and competent before continuing with the procedure. Perhaps this will become the new way of identifying maturity, or perhaps age will remain as the guideline. Either way, here at Ethics Point, we prefer to remain impartial in the hopes that you will take the time to consider the data we presented and the varying opinions we observed before coming to your own conclusion on what the most ethical resolution to this controversy is. For me personally, this research journey led me to appreciate the nuanced opinions of what is ethical, and that in ethics there is never one true answer. Before we leave, it is important to note that although this episode focused heavily on the hormonal and surgical aspects of gender transitioning, not all transgender individuals wish to undergo these treatments because they may believe their current body is how they wish to express their gender. Gender is a highly personal aspect, and it presents itself differently for everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Ethics Point. We'll see you next time.